I got the wrap film for this car. This is Jason O'Neill's Fury. Jason O'Neill's out of Spokane, Washington. And I'm going to go ahead and start wrapping this car blue. We got this beautiful blue that we're going to put on it. But one thing I wanted to show you guys is a lot of these panels are not new. The only thing that's new on this car are the doors. And the first time you run a body on track, the nose gets pitted, the fenders get pitted, they get these little minor cracks in it. And a lot of times there's not a lot you can do to repair some of these cracks or these dings. The best thing you can do is just to try to clean them up with a little bit of sandpaper. One of the hardest things to fix is in the nose where you get a bunch of little pits. And I'll show you a couple little techniques that I use to get some of those pits out. If you don't try to remove those pits, what will happen is you've got this flat surface that has like a divot, but it's not really a divot. It's actually a divot with a couple raised sides on either side of it. And if you don't find a way to smooth those out, then all of a sudden you'll have either a bubble or just a lump in your wrap. And yeah, they'll be small, but there'll be thousands of them. So a couple different ways that I go about getting those out is in an area that is flat, that has no real contour to it, and you've got a lot of those little pits, you can use your razor blade and just scrape it. Don't cut into it because you'll dig into it and you'll leave a mark there. But if you use your razor blade and you just scrape it kind of aggressively, as long as the corners aren't leaving gouge marks, you can actually knock those down a little bit and clean that piece up. Also on a corner, like on this corner here on the front side of this wheel well, there was a little bit of tire contact and it had a little bit of a mark there. Again, you can go over it, you know, along that line and smooth those out, clean that edge up a little bit. And if you have to take some fine sandpaper, some 320 or some 400 grit to smooth that out a little bit, just to get that mark off of it, you can. Unfortunately, when you use sandpaper, it kind of gets this fuzziness, this hairiness, because that plastic kind of stands up. It's not brittle enough to where when you sand it, it just shears that off. It's soft enough that it kind of curls up and it stands up. But then you have like this fuzzy patch. That's easy to get rid of with a little bit of heat. If you just take your heat gun or your blowtorch and you roll over it nice and smooth, you don't want to get it so hot that it deforms, but that heat will just burn those little things down, just kind of flows them out a little bit. Just like if you have some pits in some hard to reach areas, if you use your little mini torch and you heat those up, those will actually kind of smooth out a little bit. And worst case, you can heat them up a little bit, then drag over them with your razor blade and smooth those out. It's really going to enhance the finish of a new wrap over an old bumper or an old fender, just by smoothing out that sub panel. And it just, like I say, it just cleans up the look of it. As you can see, the rear bumper is also a used part. There was some damage on this corner. With my heat gun, I was able to get everything smoothed out. I was able to clean it all up. There's a little bit of marks on that, but that'll all cover up pretty easily. I went through every part of it, cleaned up every edge that I can, and you really, other than a nick here or there, you can't even tell that this is a used panel. One of the things that you're going to want to make sure you do before you wrap this is that you give this entire car, not the windows, and be careful with the doors, because the doors are, they're not gel coat, they are like an epoxy paint or some sort of a baked on, like a powder coat of sorts. So you got to be careful with those, but use lacquer thinner and wipe every single square inch of this car down. Really scrub on the plastic parts like the front and rear bumper. If you have the plastic fenders and quarter panels, scrub those really good also, because there is a mold release agent in those that help those release. And you don't want that stuff underneath your wrap film. It will cause adhesion issues. Also, these cars typically get waxed often, so make sure that you use that lacquer thinner and you get in every nook and cranny, every body line, everywhere you can get, and get as much of that old wax off of there. You want a completely fresh panel to start with for the wrap to adhere to. After I get the entire car wiped down with lacquer thinner, I will give it a really good blowout with my blowgun. I will blow underneath all of my fenders. I will blow out the cowl seam. Every seam on this car I will blow out really well. These bumper seams, just to get as much of that dirt, debris, any lint that's hanging out down there, get all of that blown out so that you have a great starting base to stick your wrap to. So at this point, I've gone through, I've wiped everything down with lacquer thinner. I've blown out every nook and cranny and crevice. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe it down with isopropyl alcohol. This again will help cut through any of that old wax, oil, just overall junk that is left on the surface of this body that you don't even notice. You look right through it and you think that it's just plain gel coat. So I'm going to give it one final wipe down with isopropyl alcohol. It's really cheap. It's like 88 cents at the grocery store for a little bottle. Yeah, give it a good wipe down and we're ready to start sticking plastic. When I'm wrapping a car and I'm trying to get the panel or the piece located to where I want it, I use tape and I mark where my edges are, so when I get this thing, the back pulled off it, and I get it ready to stick, I can line it up on my marks, and it just makes it easier to align it, or register it is what we call it, registering the piece. So masking tape is cheap. It's easy to stick on. It peels off easy. It doesn't pull the sublayer of vinyl off. It doesn't tend to leave any goo or anything behind it. So it's just a nice, easy way to attach it, hold it in place, and then make marks. This is the left side of the nose, and as you can see, I've got the graphic on it. I've got the hood graphic, the center graphic, and I went ahead and I did these graphics before I put this blue section in it, because this is such a difficult nose to wrap. There's so many contours and so many tough edges that I thought, it'd be easier to put the graphic in and then just wrap the section that I need blue. So here's what it looks like before I put the blue on it. And again, you can notice that I've got the graphic in it, the graphics there. I have not got the headlight in or the fog lamp in. So at this point, now that I've got the graphic in, I can wrap just the section that I know will be blue around the valence, and then I can go through and trim out where this fog lamp is and where the headlight is here, and I can put my headlight in and fog lamp in and just have a small overlap. On this side, you can see how small that overlap is. I've only got about 1/8 of an inch of overlap, and this keeps me from having to wrap that whole area. That's a really, really difficult spot to wrap. So I'm going to go ahead and get my blue on there, and then I can put my headlight in. And then finally I can put my grill sticker on, and it'll be pretty much done. When I'm doing areas like the valence, I try to use as many scrap pieces as I can. When you're wrapping a car, you're going to have a lot of scrap pieces. Try to keep all those scrap pieces because they're nice for doing repairs, like if you get a tire mark on a fender or somewhere. It's nice to use those scrap pieces to repair that, as well as when you're doing areas like this, which is kind of a pain in the butt. Using these scraps really makes life a lot easier. Now you can see where I've left my little bit of my overlap, so that when I put my fog lamp in there, it'll cover all of this. Not only will it cover that seam, but it'll also help hold down the edges of my wrap film and my graphic. You can see it on the grill as well as on the headlight. You can't see it so much on the stuff that I've already put on, but it's there. It's just about perfect. A lot of times when you're putting graphics on, you're going to use a squeegee or a spreader to put it in, and you're going to get a million of these little tiny scratches. It's going to happen. You can use like a glass cleaner or some sort of a liquid to help that, but then it's hard to see where the little air bubbles are, and it's hard to get those little air bubbles out if you got moisture on it. So I prefer to do it dry, but I have a system of getting these little tiny scratches out. What I like to do is take my little burner torch and just gently go over those. You don't want to get it too hot because it's easy to kind of burn it and discolor it, but if you just gently take it, and you can take a lot of those scratches out by just going over it like that.